So, from our last conversation, you're not totally convinced that it's not a bioweapon, right?
No, I am convinced. No, wait, I am convinced that it's a bioweapon.
You are convinced it's a
I
bioweapon.
am convinced that it is a bioweapon. I do not think it had naturally occurred.
Okay. So,
Now, whether it was released intentionally or unintentionally, it's a different story.
okay, that's fair. Hmm. I mean, I can definitely see that, if they were really testing on stuff in Wuhan, if they were really testing on coronavirus uh, strains and manipulating them, and accidentally getting out, not entirely impossible. It's really not.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean anymore. It's just the whole. It's just beating a dead horse at this point, really.
It is,
It,
it is.
it's everyone sees this shit in the media every day. It's talking about it's nothing. The only thing about the whole situation that's irritating me at this point is mask.
Oh, the
People
mask thing.
wearing, yeah, like did you watch you watched Lex Fridman on JRE, right?
Yeah, yeah, I did.
So he started that podcast out with condoning people wearing masks, like cloth
Yeah.
mask. That's the most idiotic thing you can do.
Why?
Because when you wear a cloth, because look, for one, cloth is permeable. It's shit gets through it. There's no stopping it. It's
I
not
agree.
protecting you from anything. If anything is it's a short time mitigation. If you cough or something, it's not directly spreading out like out in a burst like it would if you just openly cough.
Yeah,
If
but so
anything,
like,
if anything, it's protecting people from that, but it's definitely not protecting people. If you're wearing one and someone coughs around you, it's gonna go through your mask
for sure. But
because because as soon as if you're wearing that cloth and you're breathing on it and it's between your like just your saliva and the heat within your breath,
sure,
that cloth is gonna dampen and then it just becomes basically a magnet for everything in your vicinity.
that's
Then you're
fair.
just breathing that shit in nonstop until you take that mask off and wash it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that. I don't think that a cloth mask is going to help with preventing you getting it, but it definitely helps with like limiting the amount of
But
movement
like
from
I
your
said, it is
contamination.
the only justifying it I could see is a short-term mitigation for people just running in and out of a store. It I guess, but I mean, it's not something for if you happen to work in a workplace where you're wearing that all day long,
Well,
you're definitely putting yourself in harm's way then.
for sure, for sure. But I mean, like, if you have the coronavirus and you're wearing one, it's not going to allow your breath to spread as far or as quickly.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah,
that's the only
they're
real
saying that that's the
justification
benefit.
I can
Yeah,
see
they're saying that
that
that's the benefit of wearing the
if
mask.
you have it on and you cough, yeah, it's not just a straight outburst to everyone. It's the
Yeah.
only thing I can understand to see from that. Like, but you're not gonna catch me wearing one. I think it's idiotic.
Yeah.
But then this other thing is like,
Bluetooth.
so take like these nurses and well, just healthcare workers in general.
Yeah. Okay.
They have to wear these masks, and then when they're not wearing them, they have to keep them in a brown bag, which is a paper bag.
Yeah.
All right. By OSHA standards, when you take off a respirator, you have to put it into a sealable bag.
All right. Yeah.
But so by OSHA standards, you're breaking OSHA. So if say OSHA was to go in there, they could find the fuck out of these hospitals for that shit. But they're not
Okay.
going to because it's probably them that's giving them the idea to do the shit.
Probably.
But by their actual OSHA standards, which you can just go on their website and look up for free, whenever you're not whenever your respirator isn't in use, you have to keep it in a sealable bag, not a brown paper bag where shit can just easily get into it.
Okay.
And then so then where was I? Oh, so the reason why the hospitals are making them do that is so the contamination isn't staying in the bag. But I mean, what's the point if anything else around there can still get into the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But this is what they're being told to do.
It's definitely a weird time to where pretty much everything that was the standard is no longer like being followed.
Yeah, it's not. And the other thing that irritates me about the whole thing is so a lot of those masks, like the masks that they wear, like that, I think they're like N95s or something. They
Okay.
just look like they're not dust masks, but you know what I'm talking about. They just
Yeah, I
cover
know
the
what you're
mouth.
talking about. Yeah.
They're not
It's
just the
like a sanding
typical.
mask for like sanding
Yeah.
floors. Yeah.
All right. Anything that just seals around just your nose and mouth.
I've got earplugs if you want those. Look, the little gray container. Sorry, she doesn't like her conversation. Okay. Okay. Anyways.
So anything. So take any half face mask of any sort, whether it's a dust mask and what the healthcare workers wear, anything that seals around you, like your just from basically your chin around your nose,
Okay.
doesn't seal 100%.
No, yeah. It's like a
It
Seaburn
leaks
mask. It doesn't.
so much. All that leaks through your nose, and the more they take that on and off, it wears down. Because those kind of masks that they wear have metal pieces in them that hurt the
Yeah.
shit out of your nose. I don't know how they wear them all day, but they hurt 100% your nose. Like, I don't get it,
Yeah.
but the more they take it off there, that metal bends, and then you're breaking down the integrity of the structure of it. So
Yeah.
it, at the end of, then it's just weak. Then your seal weakens even more. The only thing that you can guarantee with 100% seal for the most part is
Like a Seaburn mask
is
or a hazmat. Yeah,
a
exactly.
full face mask. And then if you really want to be fully protected, you'd have to get a full face mask with supplied air,
Hmm.
not just with
Okay.
cartridges, just not with filter cartridges on them.
Fair enough. So, all right. Well, I mean, like
And that's
I don't
just
know shit about any of the regulations. Like it's just not something I would care about personally.
these are just.
But
I mean,
I know you know this
anyone who
because of your job.
Yeah, I was gonna say anyone who's worked in a position where they have to wear masks and go over OSHA standard bylines, like they should be fully aware of this stuff, but they
Yeah.
most people don't care and don't pay attention or overlook things like that. And
No, I totally get
this
it.
is just stuff that it gets beaten to your, if you work in a profession for that long, it
Fucking
just gets
quit.
beaten to your head after a while. So
Yeah.
you're forced to know it. But anything like that you can look up for free on the OSHA's website. It's not like they try to hide this stuff from you.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's all open access information. It's not like anything crazy. So it's definitely good that people are, starting to at least starting to take it seriously anyway. You know, like let's get this thing over with. Let's
I
figure out
guess.
whatever the,
I
I've
still
never been
think
very concerned personally, at least for like my age range and my health. Like
I
I'm
still
good.
don't think the quarantine at this point is. I think it's pointless because
I think it's fine.
unless they plan on what
I think it's fine personally.
I think if people
Why are
if
you
you just
convinced
follow
it's useless?
because if look, I'm gonna
You sound like a
guarantee you
right winger that's convinced everything in the media. It says a lot.
what
Come on, man. Come on, defend
no
yourself.
so I'm gonna guarantee you that because if you can't keep people away from this, as soon as they let people back out, because they're not gonna take off the stay at home quarantine until the numbers start declining like significantly.
Yeah, which is probably
All right.
unlikely for a
As soon
long
as that
time.
happens and they kind of steady out a little bit,
Yeah.
they're gonna remove that and tell people they can go back out. And as soon as they do, those numbers are gonna jump
Oh, they're
back
gonna
up
jump right
again.
back up. Yeah, for sure. It's
That's
exactly
why
what's starting to happen
I
in
think it's
China again.
pointless. You're prolonging something the inevitable. People are either gonna get it or not get it. I don't know what else to say about it. Like,
Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from for sure.
if anything, they're only trying to like. It's just a mitigation to like slow people going into the hospitals so they can maintain that. But
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It's just the way people stop panicking and they don't flood the resources that we have. Because I mean, all these people going to the hospital is definitely going to overwhelm the hospitals. Like they can't handle that shit.
yeah, and then like my this will be my last pet peeve on this whole thing
Okay.
is the people going out into the stores or afraid to go out in the stores or whatever with these gloves and stuff.
Okay.
Stop wearing gloves to go out there because because you're picking up the same stuff that
Yeah.
everyone else has
I see
touched
people
with
like
these
using their
gloves.
phones with the gloves on. I'm like, are you gonna clean that
Put
before you get
put
back in
all
your
that
car or something?
aside. Put all the using their phones, touching their faces and stuff. Put all
Yeah.
that aside.
Okay.
You're picking up all these products that you're gonna buy that everyone else has already touched, and you're taking them home. Unless you're wiping them down with Clorox wipes when you get home, you gotta touch them at some point.
Yeah.
What's the point?
Yeah.
Just wash your hands when you're done.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it lives on surfaces for a pretty long time, so it's gonna be there.
Yeah,
All right. So enough about COVID. We've beat that
yeah.
horse.
I'm just, I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's beating a dead horse, but
Yeah.
that's pretty much all I got to say left that I got to say about it.
Are you picking up any feedback on
From
my
you?
end? Yeah. No.
What do you mean? I hear music in the background. It sounds like.
Okay. Is it too distracting? Okay. Well, thank you for your patience. One. So, with the moon mining situation, I know what you were saying with that article, to where Trump basically authorized us to basically do whatever the fuck we want on the surface of the moon and below the surface of the moon at this rate.
Yeah.
So,
He's determined to establish any kind of presence in space at all.
definitely.
Especially, I mean, because this is following. How long has it been? A year since he said he was gonna start
Oh, with
the
the Space
space
Force?
force.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I
it was
mean,
like a
so
year or two ago.
I don't remember exactly when he first mentioned that in the media. I know he was talking about it there at least a year, maybe 2 years ago. But so, yeah, I don't really remember when that first surfaced, but it's here now. It's a real thing. They basically just repurposed the Air Force Space Command as Space Force, and that's pretty dope for sure. That we're creating. Honestly, what I think we're trying to do is develop like a defense contracting situation where we provide security for space assets for ourselves or other countries. So like renting out our defense space industry to work with our commercial space industry. I can foresee that as being a goal.
Yeah, I I think it's a good thing to do. I'm curious to see how everyone else reacts to this.
To the Space Force?
No, well, not just Space Force. I mean, just the whole like moon thing in general.
Oh, okay. Well, so Yeah, I don't know exactly how well
Do
that's gonna
you,
go for
do you
sure.
think we're gonna end up in like another like space race like we had with Russia or?
Well, so we're in a space race right now with China that people aren't talking about.
Oh really?
Yeah, so our Perseverance rover. So basically, you can only go to Mars like every 2 years, and we'll have a window. I think it's August of 2020. So like later this year, there's a window to send something to Mars. Um, and China has a very secretive space program, like a pretty capable one. Like they've landed on the far side of the moon. They've been conducting a bunch of research on the surface of the moon. Like China is pretty talented. They've definitely got like the third best space program in the world. Like they definitely beat the ESA even I would say. Uh, that might be a bit controversial, but I would argue it. Um, but so it's crazy that they are very effective at landing and making reliable rockets. Like they do a pretty gnarly job.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that their space programs are growing. I mean, they have the second biggest economy in the world, so why wouldn't they? They
Yeah,
definitely have the money and resources to do this.
yeah, they should be more than capable of making an effective
Plus, yeah,
space
plus all
program.
the the technological advances they've made already
Oh
too.
yeah, dude,
So
their drones are nuts. Like their drone capabilities are top notch for sure. They're very competitive. Um, but their space industry, like the stuff that they're developing for that is pretty impressive as well. Like the satellite technology, they're wanting to do like basically like cluster satellites to where it's pretty large, but it would broadcast like TV, internet, like all this shit just from satellite from one thing, one really big thing. Um, but dude, there's so much junk in space right now with all the shit that they're sending up anyway. Like, and China doesn't really coordinate well enough. So I remember there was like one of the first real known impacts, like to where a Chinese and I think a French satellite collided.
I was just about to ask you. I'm like, I mean, with space as being as big as it is,
Hmm.
there's, would you say like there being at least a million satellites in space be lowballing it?
No, I wouldn't say that there's a million. Most of them are accounted for. There's probably like there's definitely a million like pieces of junk up there for sure.
By now there is, yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely say like fragments as small as like a grain of sand up to something like the size of a fucking car. Like there's big shit up there just broken and floating around. Even an actual car, thanks to Elon. But the uh, the amount of satellites, I'd say it's probably in the thousands. Probably hasn't broken 10,000, I'd
Were
say.
you like you just like single digit thousands or like you need like
Probably like I would say probably like 7,000 like functional satellites
functional?
that we know of for sure.
Yeah,
Like that's at least like public information, probably.
public information.
Well, I mean, there's definitely a
I
lot of
know.
very secret satellites out there. So, uh, I forget what I was going to say about the satellites. Regardless, uh, so the whole moon thing keeps going on. We're looking to be able to establish that permanent settlement that's going to be sustainable there, and there's a space race with China to Mars. There's a lot going on in the space industry. Like there's a whole lot going on with the whole like space travel shit in general.
Yeah, they just don't publicize it a lot.
Yeah, man, I've been convinced for a long ass time that there is a secret space program, and there's multiple. The Air Force has had one. Now we know it's the Space Force, and then like there's all this other shit. But so today, that link I sent you talking about like the real Men in
What?
Black.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I looked into this as about as deep as I could, and I've been following the UFO thing. Don't get me wrong, I'm very interested. But so
Yeah.
in the Vice article at the very bottom, they included this uh, AFOSI form 158, and so like this form is used for basically confessions for polygrams. So if or polygraphs, not polygram. Dear. Uh, so basically, whenever they're talking to someone who was involved in a particular situation where something potentially illegal happened with the polygraph confessions, um, that's what these are for. Like there are security specialists that look into these. The file itself seems to check out as authentic. There's a few grammatical errors, but beyond that, it's pretty legit. But so I'm gonna dive deep here if you're cool with it.
Okay. Go no. Go right ahead.
So I dug into this today, and then I tweeted a thread about it on Twitter, just to kind of keep myself in notes. Basically, the article in summary was that uh, Luis Elizondo, the guy that uh, Tom DeLonge has, that was a former DoD contractor that worked in the Pentagon. They're stating that uh, this gives Elizondo a lot of credibility, and it shows that the Pentagon was trying to cover up its tracks, talking about AATIP, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. It's pretty ridiculous that this kind of substantiated Elizondo's claims because this is basically it's basically confirming the idea that unidentified aerial phenomenon or UFOs are legit, and that uh, the Pentagon has really been looking into this shit, like taking it very seriously. So there was a lot of scrutiny that people were giving it, and I can see how the article itself is a bit controversial, but it seems to be like pretty well on par with legitimacy. I would say I am about 80% certain that this is real and like things are actually starting to go down and move into a crazy direction regarding UFOs. So in the paper, there's the Office of what was it? So it's the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, and this particular office, located in the Pentagon, falls under Region 3, which would be what is it? The Air Mobility Command for the Air Force. So this is a pretty high level operation that they're talking about. Like, I mean, this directly responds to like command groups. So it was someone in a leadership role that would have had the ability to action this particular investigation about the UFO videos. So it makes me question who exactly that authority was and why they were interested particularly in this subject. And with the Pentagon looking as closely into this as they are, I find it particularly interesting. Like, we might be on the verge of finding out either this technology is our own because the that department in particular does like counterintelligence operations, like to make sure that no one is getting access to classified systems or classified capabilities, this sort of thing. So it makes sense that this office might take interest uh, in this particular incident because there's a this is merely speculation. I don't have any proof of this, but I would imagine that their interest in it was because this could be classified Air Force technology that the Navy caught on camera, or
Yeah, something that they accidentally caught that they weren't supposed to.
yeah,
Yeah,
or it
that's a
really
possibility.
or it really is something extraordinary.
Was
It's
that
one of those two
guy and
things.
was that guy was he involved with the Fravor incident, or was it one of the other ones?
Well, no, so that's the thing is that the 2004 Nimitz incident with Commander David Fravor was one of the videos that were leaked. Or they
Yeah.
weren't leaked. They were unclassified for official use only. They were uh, they were unclassified, so they weren't leaked. Like that was the uh, decision of the authority that did the investigation. Like they decided that the case was closed. It wasn't leaked. It was unclassified. So Commander David Fravor, the Nimitz incident, they catch this thing on the F-18 Super Hornet radar, and they got it on infrared camera. They've got footage of these things, and the footage is public. So Luis Elizondo was the guy that got the footage from Commander David Fravor's incident released to the public. Maybe not him like intentionally leaking classified information. It seems like a screw up of a higher ranking authority on that, but for sure, it's some wild shit. Like,
Yeah. I don't want. So I know we're gonna get into Project Looking Glass at some point,
yes,
but taking from that clip of that Bill Wood guy,
yeah,
where I kind of agreed with you a little bit on his legitimacy.
for sure.
But the things that he was talking about with UFOs matched up a lot with Bob Lazar's
Yeah, it
uh,
did, and
knowledge on UFOs as well. So yeah, I understand your hesitancy for his on like how legitimate
yeah,
that whole testimony was,
the first video,
because I kind of agree with you a little bit.
yeah,
But I also thought it was kind of odd how much that information specifically on UFOs
matched up with Bob
matched up
Lazar.
with Bob Lazar's.
So, uh, his stuff on Bin Laden doesn't seem too far fetched either. Like
I
this,
didn't watch the video you like the the
the
hour or
first one,
2 hour one that you sent me. I
yeah,
didn't actually watch all of that one.
okay. So the first one, I didn't watch like all of it. I skimmed most of it.
Yeah, I didn't find.
Actually,
I was
not.
trying to skim it, and I just couldn't find things in it with that was
Yeah.
interesting enough to
So,
me. But
so I would say that his ability to talk about some of this stuff, uh, dude, I don't know what to think of the guy. I mean, he's allegedly a sex offender, and
which he openly admits to.
yeah, he admits to it, and he's got an interesting explanation
And he's
for it.
also you also got to mention the fact that
It's
he's
very little.
a ex Navy SEAL.
Yeah, well, so
The thing that threw
that's the
me
thing
off
is
of
like I
it,
don't know if he really was an ex-Navy SEAL.
I don't know. Yeah, that's yeah, because wasn't he? Because wasn't that part of the video where there was where they weren't showing because he was a part of SEAL Team 9 and they
Yeah.
don't the government doesn't acknowledge that there is a SEAL Team 9.
Yeah, so I mean he explains why.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
the thing that threw the very first thing that on that video that threw me off was the fact that he said he said it right in the beginning. His intentions were to discuss the book that he was writing that he said was fictional.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the part that threw me off like immediately. I'm like, but some of the things that he's saying wasn't far fetched.
Yeah. It made me
But
wonder exactly like how much of
but
that was
with with him in that him getting tried for sex, because he's not by the U.S. government. He's not a sex offender. He was only court-martialed. He said he was only court-martialed
Through the
by
military, yeah.
the military.
Yeah. Because so like regardless of state law, like federal law is that a legal adult is 18 years old, so uh that's how the army could have tried him on that, or the military in general. So
I don't know. Part of me wants to believe,
that's fair. I mean,
like this is kind of like, I don't know. I don't like I said, I don't know how much to buy into what he was saying, but part of me wants to believe that if he really was a Navy SEAL in the military and he knew stuff like this
okay,
and was gonna put it out, it would be a good way for the it'd be a good way for the
discredit
military
him,
to
yeah.
like automatically make him dismissible
Yeah. Just like Bob Lazar with the prostitution thing.
with them deleting records of him even
Oh, that
working
too.
at,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's not like none of it's far fetched, but it's, how much do you really want to buy? It really just how much do you really want to buy into it?
Yeah, I mean, dude, there are definitely numerous examples of people like whose identities are basically erased.
Deleted off
Yeah,
the fucking face of the earth
yeah,
just
just
so you seem like just so you seem crazy.
for sure. Yeah, there are a lot of examples of that, and it's
And then
weird.
also he could. And also another possibility is he could have very well been put into that situation and just bit the bait just so they could have control over him.
Yeah, I found it pretty wild though that like in the second interview in particular, he definitely seemed to think like he's kind of too confident of himself. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like he said one of the guys he was talking to, he said that it like was a bit hard to follow, and then Bill Wood said that don't worry, it hurt my brain too at first. Like he was just being it was
yeah.
funny.
Well,
Like I found it satirical, but
in that one clip where he was talking about UFOs, I mean, he did. I feel like he made a pretty good point that if the government comes out and said, like, if they find out that like the people are like, all right, we have flying technology like UFOs,
okay.
and they tell us that it's our own technology, then that's when we start to question what it's based off of. How
Oh,
did
for
we?
sure, yeah.
How do we get? How did they get to that point where they
How'd they figure
actually
that out?
built that? Because
Yeah,
everything that we have rocket wise is off propulsion systems.
yeah, yeah. I mean, these things completely defy our understandings of fundamental physics, man.
Yeah, I was gonna
Like,
say it defies everything that like common knowledge of physics.
yeah, it's it's very interesting to. I mean, you can see the videos for yourself, the ones that Elizondo got in the media. Have you looked at those?
The videos, no, I just read the article.
So in the Go Fast video, I mean, you're talking about F-18 Super Hornets. These are very fast aircraft, like Mach speeds. Like I don't know exactly how fast, but I mean they're very fast. Um, so there were recently I saw Deep Prasad. He's a UFO like researcher basically. Um, he recently shared a link on Twitter about a research study that is very familiar with the sort of tracking systems that the F-18 Super Hornets are using.
Yeah.
And so they analyzed the rate of speed, like how fast this thing had to have been moving to in the video. And it was something around like 100,000 miles an hour.
Did you say anything right? Did you
Yeah,
end 1,000 miles an hour?
100,000 miles an hour is what
All
I
right,
ended.
because I accidentally muted this. As soon as you finished, I was trying to turn you down just a little bit, and then
That's
I
funny.
muted it by accident.
No, you're good.
But the thing, the thing about that article that interested me the most, because I've been absolutely fascinated since this has happened about Tom DeLonge,
Yeah, for sure. Me too.
who just leaves one of the biggest bands in modern music history
On a whim,
to chase UFOs.
right? That's pretty legendary, to be honest
Like,
with you.
yeah, that's. I mean, but like, I don't. I've been fascinated by that since it's happened. But he's actually gotten backed by a lot of people doing this,
Yeah,
and has been able to like have a lot of found a lot of resources to keep doing this.
yeah. He's the two of the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences. Like he's actually got a pretty good program running. It's weird. I think he's gonna I think he's gonna get this disclosure thing to happen slowly but surely. You know.
Yeah, because everyone thought he was absolutely crazy whenever he first did this, and he's
Oh, dude, yeah,
actually gotten into a position where he is respected by some that's within that community.
yeah,
I want to say why. Straight to say why do we respect it? Because a lot of people don't really give a shit about UFOs or believe in them.
yeah, dude. I'm definitely into that. Like, I want them to be real. I want there to be extraterrestrial life visiting Earth. Hopefully, they're not uh malicious. Otherwise, we're just fucked. Like, we've got nothing against that. But I think that Project Looking Glass might actually be that thing that we got against that, if I'm not mistaken. If it's real.
It's project Project Looking Glass is just man, it's a rabbit hole that
It is.
you got to just jump down that like
Yeah, it's so like the UFO thing is not even nearly as big of a rabbit hole as Project Looking Glass. Not even.
it's just how yeah, because I won't say that because I'd say UFOs go the
They
talk
go
of
deep,
UFOs
man. They go deep.
goes probably back farther in time history,
Yeah,
but Project Looking Glass, how much it goes back in more like prominent recorded history within like the last 150 years,
yeah.
like so. No, something I didn't look into that I'm curious about is it named after the Alice in Wonderland book?
I don't know if it's that or vice versa, you know?
I see. I don't know. I don't know if it goes. So so Alice Through the Looking Glass is the sequel to the first one, based off
Yeah.
of I mean, off the book, which was written like 1870 something.
1871.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty wild, right?
So and I haven't been able to find anything with Project Looking Glass before that time.
Yeah, I mean that was
I think the earliest
it was most likely that it was named
I
after
think the
Alice in
earliest
Wonderland
speculated that people talk about is World War II with the Nazis.
in the 40s. I mean, that would make sense. We were definitely doing a lot of crazy shit in the 40s.
Yeah, because I mean, theory is that the Nazi scientists were trying to. So Project Looking Glass is essentially just those who don't know is the trying to basically just seeing into the past or the future. It's not exactly time traveling, which
Yeah,
I think they're trying to turning it which the people who look into it try to turn it into time traveling as well.
yeah. Well, I mean,
So
like,
they basically go seeing and seeing the future or the past and they basically go in hand. But as far as like the earliest account that I could find is that the Nazi scientists but theory of course is that they were trying to find this to try to win the war,
yeah,
which they ultimately failed, but probably not really through Project Paperclip, which is another rabbit
Yeah, it's
hole.
another rabbit
Which
hole.
I mean, I guess I don't know if you can even call Project Paperclip a rabbit hole since it's actually been proven to be true.
It's real.
Yeah,
It's real.
dude, tell me how you watched Michael Shermer on JRE, right?
I did not watch the most recent one.
All right, so he's basically like a big skeptic of
Oh
everything.
yeah, yeah. And
Yes,
I
that's
know the
what he
guy.
does,
Yeah.
and doesn't really buy into conspiracy theories. Basically, right in the beginning of it, he's like, it made me so happy because he was just like, the reason why people believe in conspiracy theories is because they're mostly true.
He literally said that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Now I don't. I mean,
That's crazy. That's a flip
yeah.
flop for
I
him.
thought. I don't know. I don't know if the Epstein thing really
I think it
turned him
got to him.
around
I
or
think that got
something,
to him.
but
Yeah. I think Epstein was like, "What?" Dude,
wait, where was I going with that before I said something? Before I
about paperclip and then
paperclip. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how much of a rabbit hole Project Paperclip can really be if it's actually been acknowledged as truth.
yeah, dude. I mean, you don't lose the war and have all of your scientists come and start controlling shit in the states.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
that's a
they
win.
really nobody would have even found out about that alone if they had it if the science that one scientist hadn't gotten recognized.
Yeah,
And then he was the only one that got tried too.
for sure. I bet a lot of those motherfuckers were involved, man.
I,
Without a
I
doubt,
wonder how
almost.
common knowledge it is that how many like programs were started by Nazis like NASA.
I mean, there were quite a few,
Yeah, I
without a
know, but
doubt.
I just wonder how many people actually really know that.
Uh, I think that people usually ignore extravagant information. You know what I mean? That like they just want to see like dumb shit in their
They
news
just
every
care
day.
what NASA's doing. They don't care how it got there.
Exactly. But I mean
Yeah,
like most people completely ignore things that are factual that scare the shit out of them. Like that's just human tendency.
that's true.
Yeah,
Yeah, typically if you gotta if it's kind of the scarier it is, the more they just kind of block it out.
for sure.
Really, they just go into their own little world like everything's gonna be fine. Which
And
everything is gonna be fine, but why not acknowledge these things?
yeah, I mean especially if it provides interesting conversation like paperclip. Like
I just
that is
like to use it more for the benefit of the to dismiss the government. I mean,
oh, for sure.
I I never trust the government on anything ever. I always doesn't matter what it is they tell me. I just assume firsthand that they're lying to me about something. And if
Oh,
they
yeah,
aren't lying
almost
to me,
guaranteed.
and if it isn't a lie,
Yeah,
it's just a smokescreen for another lie.
for sure. I completely agree. So, let's dive into Looking Glass. Like, let's talk about this. Let's see. Like, so what I would like to do is go back to the Mayans and how
With
like
the
you know how
2012 thing,
yeah the weird ass calendar there is how like it was this doomsday calendar, right? Basically.
that is weird that the Mayans built their calendar all the way to 2012,
And that's specifically the year that they were saying they couldn't get past with
and
Looking Glass.
that's super creepy.
That is very strange. I would say that that is an interesting connection if Looking Glass is authentic, and I believe it is personally. I mean, we know
It's
that
not it's not far fetched. Like I believe in it.
it's it's weird, it's out there, but like
Yeah.
we know for sure both like the KGB and Russian intelligence assets and our intelligence agencies were looking into like cognitive abilities. It's best general summary of what they were talking about with like oh, what do they call it? Like projection, like to
Yeah,
where they can see inside of a place, and like there are accounts that have been uh, declassified of people being able to go through uh, an entire complex, an entire military complex in a remote area that would have never had any access to. They're able to describe and navigate through the entire thing and even name people that are in it. This is very strange. Have you seen those?
yeah, yeah. So
The,
something like I haven't I haven't like
assuming
looked
those are
into.
authentic, you know.
Yeah, assuming those are authentic, but something that fuck, hold on a second. I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's fuck. Hold on a second. I'm gonna look it up. So I
Take your
know I
time.
keep bringing this up to you,
Okay.
and
What is it? Like, what's the
so you
subject?
know how I keep bringing up to you that Hollywood or whatever movies, TV shows, people who make these TV shows, they make things to make it
Oh, based
kind of make
on,
people like dismiss it as truth.
yeah,
So
like the Matrix.
you know Stranger Things is based off of a real thing, right?
About the town in Indiana.
No, Stranger Things is based off of a story in at the tip of Staten Island.
Staten Island, huh?
Let me look up it's called Project something. And I can't think of the name right now. Sam Tripoli. So CW came out with the TV show. It's a
Real, based on a real life CIA experiment. That's digitalspy.com.
So the character 11 on that is supposed to. There's someone who came out. I think it was on Reddit that was claiming that she was the real life 11. That she was held. So really need to know the name of this. So
MK Ultra.
no,
Oh, okay.
no.
You're talking about Brenner's experiments on 11, right?
Yes.
MK Ultra was a real thing by the
No,
CIA.
it was. No, I'm not saying it wasn't. No,
Okay.
but that's not what it's. That's not what I'm talking about.
The mind control technique shit? Like what are,
It has nothing to do with
I'm just trying to
that.
jog your memory.
The Montauk Project.
I know exactly. Yep.
It's called the Montauk
In
Project because
Montauk, New
it was
York.
in Montauk, or the place that it was at was called Montauk, or the building
In
or the
Montauk, New
town or
York. Yeah.
whatever it was in was called that. Basically, it's like at the tip of
What the fuck?
Staten Island in New York. It's and it was this place that was in the town. There was a theory that they were abducting kids. They were never able to prove that they were abducting kids, but they were running experiments on them. And because that,
Accidentally
so
opened.
the belief is that children to to be able to gain access to like psychic powers and stuff like that, and like doing things that was kind of involving what we were talking about with time travel,
Yeah.
is through children because that's when their powers are the strongest.
Hmm. Okay.
Now, I don't really buy into all of that, but the theory is that the reason why children's powers are stronger is because they haven't been compromised
Suppressed.
by the world
Yeah.
and being told that that isn't real and they're crazy. So when they grow up, their power they don't use these things and they go away. And I don't really buy into all of that, but this building is real, and the stuff that they were showing in there, like these chairs and stuff, they were
Okay.
all there when because the place is abandoned now.
Huh.
So all these things in this building are real. And the CW did a conspiracy theory show And on the Montauk episode, the lady that was hosting it had Sam Tripoli on there with her because he was like, he was hard, he was heavy into the subject.
Oh
But
boy.
so the show, but ultimately the show Stranger Things is based off this.
Okay. The Montauk Project Experiments in Time by
And what they
Preston
were
B.
trying to do,
Nichols.
so the whole like them trying to like, so are you caught up on the show or do you watch it at all?
Yeah, I've watched it.
All
I'm
right,
I'm
so the
caught up.
so the last season when they were like where they were whatever they were trying to do, like going to another dimension or whatever.
Yeah.
That's kind of basically what they were trying to achieve in that building.
Yeah, that's the rundown I just got. I was reading while you were that's so it says sometime between the 40s and the 80s, which would have been the crazy amount of time that like that would have been the time frame when we were doing some really weird shit, right?
Yeah. Oh, it definitely lines up with the same time period of like MK Ultra and all this other stuff. So it all lines up, and I'd say if all of it's real, it's all correlated on purpose.
Yeah, so I mean if this happened let's say that it happened towards the earlier time frame of this, like the 40s, the like German, like you're saying, like during when we're at war with Nazi Germany, that we're able to create this hole. Would you imagine by now we'd be able to perfect that kind of technology? I would imagine over 60, 70, 80 years of
You
research.
would think. I mean, like, so did you watch the Edge of Wonder video I told you about, or did you just watch other stuff?
No, I did. I watched that and I watched other stuff. Yeah.
So one of the interesting things that they brought up in that video was the fact that the facility that the government is was testing all this in was going to be shut down, and Hillary Clinton was the one that stopped it
Yeah, I saw that. That
because
was strange.
the theory is that she used the Looking Glass to see if she was going to win the election, hence her confidence in why she didn't think she was going to lose the election.
So, do you think
Because she did, because during 2000 the 2016 election, she really did have an overconfidence of winning that election, which I guess if you're running for president you should, but
yeah, no, so I
she
can
seemed like it was like guaranteed.
guaranteed. Yeah. No, I agree. So,
But
I
she did, but I guess I give it to her that she ultimately did win the popular vote.
she did win the popular vote. Um I so the possibility of her having access to such a classified program, I would imagine this would be very compartmentalized, pretty hard to get into, right? Like it would be a bunch of weirdos that have access to this stuff, like people that aren't really well known. Like like Bob Lazar, Bill Wood, like that kind of character. Um but so most people don't think about how she was Secretary of State
Yeah,
for a long time. She had
exactly.
quite a bit of access to defense assets.
She had access to a lot of things. So anything that's secret within the government, she probably knows about or had a hand in at some point.
It just so what makes me curious, I would imagine that if you're going to create a program like this and have technologies that are capable of doing like these incredible feats, right? Like you're going to have a pretty compartmentalized group and a lot of oversight of the program. Regardless of how few people have oversight of it, like you would have people that are very, very attentive to every move that gets made regarding it. So, what if like in order for particular individuals to manipulate outcomes, you have to see what an individual outcome would be. Like, what if they showed Hillary Clinton this to see the outcome and then they changed it?
See, my thing with my thing with the Hillary theory is that I don't. it doesn't match up to the 2012 theory. If she, how could she see that she was going to become president if they can't see past 2012?
Well, so was 2000 and that was the election, right? Was it 2012? No.
No, it's 2016.
Hang on. So wait, that would it have been the election with Barack Obama? When did she run against Barack Obama? Was that
She
2008?
never ran against Obama.
No, for the Democratic primary.
Oh, that I do not know. That would have had to been in 2008 or 2012. No, 8. It was 8.
So what if she had access to this in like the 90s when Bill was president? What if she got access to this back then
She would have had to have.
and then hasn't been able to use it since?
Wasn't she like? When was she Secretary of State?
She was Secretary of State under Barack Obama.
Was she?
Yeah. So she
Okay.
was she was secretary she was United States Secretary of State from 2009 to 2013.
And during that time, that's when the Benghazi thing happened, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Oh, so she ran in 2008 for president and was defeated by Barack Obama.
Yeah. So, but uh, something that they said that with the whole 2012 thing is that they could after 2012 they could only see two different timelines.
Okay.
In the first timeline being that everyone has this like big awakening
Yeah.
and all the truths come out and basically everyone gains almost like full function of their brain,
Yeah.
and there's this huge awakening of truth and knowledge and nothing is secret anymore. And then there's timeline 2 where there's a big catastrophe and then it just kind of trickles down from there.
Okay.
I
So,
kind of buy into that because
bless you.
I feel like I feel like where we're at now, we're almost in the middle.
Okay. Like,
I feel like as far as like
so it could
truth
go, you're saying
wise,
it could go either way at this point.
it could because I don't know what the big catastrophe would be since then.
Okay.
I don't know if right now what I don't know right now with COVID if that's the big catastrophe or not, or maybe it's going to be something of a natural disaster.
Sure.
But also, I think within the time, I think also within our time right now that there's also a big, there's starting to be an uprising of truth.
I can see it. I can definitely agree with that. I would say that the changes in media within the past like 4 years have been on par with that. I just don't.
Now,
I I don't know, man. It's possible that we're on like one of these two trajectories, but I almost wonder if like there are ways to open access to multiple options. You know what I mean? Like they said that like did they have my question is did they have access to other options before 2012? Like did
yes,
each of those like were there only ever timeline A and timeline B like these guys are talking about, or were there multiple others and then they decided to focus on either of those two through a process of elimination or something?
see, I guess it all of that I guess would depend on what whoever's in control of it, what they want what they want the end goal to be.
Yeah. So they've had this
And
since the 40s,
who
possibly.
knows who's had like ultimate control over it because there's been things like where the Nazis have tried to accomplish this. Then Nikola Tesla's tried to
Yeah.
accomplish this. there's a theory that he did achieve. Have you read into that whole the I read the theory on this before I had seen the video
Like the
about the whole
Akashic
Trump
record.
becoming president.
Oh, okay. Like with Little Baron Trump and whatnot.
Yes.
Yeah,
Have you read into that?
I've read into that a little bit.
It's kind of eerie.
So
Like I
like
don't know how much truth you can give to it, but it's a little eerie.
the idea that like Little Baron Trump is a Mandela effect that someone planted. Like how many of these are there, you know? Like how many hints are out there if
And
that's the
that's what I'm
case?
saying. Like I don't believe in the Mandela effect.
Yeah?
So
Okay.
I don't think the Mandela effect's real. I think it's just crossing timelines or something of the sort of that.
Okay.
But I don't think that our memory is so shitty that we just forget things like that.
No, I mean, okay.
But
Our
but
our our
the
memory is definitely not the best. Like
it's not.
it's not.
But to act like a book never existed and then all of a sudden
Came
it
into
becomes
existence.
yeah, it's
I don't know.
so but that's not the part. So the weird part of it that if it has truth makes it even more weird is the
Okay.
fact that Trump's grandfather is the one that funded
Took
that
funded and then
funded
took
Nikola
away.
Tesla, and then when
Yeah.
he died, he took the time machine. If that was true, that becomes really weird. That becomes weird.
Yeah. That does become weird. Well, so like for sure uh Donald's grandpa was like it's been documented. He was one of the financiers for Nikola Tesla's research, for sure. And then we know for sure he was on the committee that went and like gathered up all that research after it was said and done. For
Yeah,
sure.
I mean
That's a thing.
you take then I guess all it takes is a couple documented cases like that
Yeah.
to run with a whole wild theory like this.
I mean, some people are willing to do it. Like I prefer scrutinization a little bit more. Um,
I like to stay skeptical of things,
same.
but when there's
Those are
more than one,
strange circumstances.
yeah, but when there's more than one account of stuff like this on
Yeah.
the same subject as like Looking Glass, I start to buy into the whole idea of it though.
Yeah.
Maybe not the
Very. Uh.
maybe not all the things like that, like the Trump thing and the Hillary thing,
Yeah.
but as a whole, I start to actually buy into the actual Project Looking Glass itself.
I'm there with you. I think that this thing is like there's a possibility it's real. Like there is a I would say like the possibility is far less great than say the UFO thing that I mentioned. Like I had 80% certainty of the UFO thing versus this I probably have about 50 maybe 50 probably 40% certainty that it existed.
See, I would go a little. For me personally, I'd be a little higher on both of those numbers.
Yeah,
Like I would be. I'm willing to bet almost everything that
you like your
UFOs are
odds.
real.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah, and
like
that
my odds
aliens are
on
real.
UFOs.
I would go way higher than 80%.
Oh, I mean, I'd throw all my money at it. 80%. I'm good with those odds.
Project Looking Glass, I'd be willing to go over 50%.
Over 50? Would you go 60?
I would say yeah, I would say around 60. I would say it's more for
Okay.
me. I would like to believe that's more likely that it exists than it doesn't exist.
All right.
But I can't say for sure. There's just not a there's just
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
enough
we'll never
actual
be able to
evidence
say for sure.
being there for it.
Except for like I mean, MK Ultra really supports the fact that Project Looking Glass could have been a thing. Um,
I mean,
I think it does.
mind control, and
Well, I mean,
time traveling
cognitive
are both.
abilities, yeah. Well, no. So, I mean, the way that the way that this works is that people have to like channel that, right? Like they have to one, believe that they can do it, is what these individuals say, and then uh, envision it. Like they have to envision going back or forward. Like, and then so perhaps perhaps they manage to figure out like the the electromagnetic implications of it. Like, let's say that the way that we can envision and do this sort of thing is through a variety of phenomenon, like involving frequencies and energy and whatnot. Like these concepts that Nikola Tesla was trying to express, like to think of reality, think in uh, terms of whatever, like whatever his quote was. I don't know it off the top of my head, but uh, what is it? Wasn't there right away. Sorry. Damn. But regardless, like, so let's say that it takes a variety of phenomena, a variety of stimulus to make this happen. And then we're able to kind of calculate and record the variety of changes that make this occur through whatever cognitive thing that they did for MK Ultra or this when they were originally just remote viewing, right? Like they weren't
Yeah,
initially going through portals or anything to go back in time. Um, so let's say that they were able to research it enough to make a stable piece of technology to go in and out of timelines, or to create a portal to go in and out of those timelines, like something to move back and forth. That's what they would need to be able to tell like what the differences are, right? Like they would be co-communicating between each option because apparently we're all there and alive and they're all here and alive. Like it's
yeah.
we're all the same.
I think that's where like something like the Montauk Project also comes into play,
Okay.
being that if you're having to drug adults into this, and then you believe that children are just already born with it,
Yeah.
you just you just gotta, which I think they ended up actually drugging them. I think they also ended up doing a lot of other like basically like torture like
Yeah.
to kids, like shocking them and shit. But yeah, I think at that time, I think the time period of those things that they they exhausted everything they could possibly could
Yeah.
that they had resources for to try to do this,
For sure. But I
whether
mean,
it was through children or adults or you know I guess for me, when I think MK Ultra, I ultimately just think sleeper agents.
that too. Yeah, I mean, definitely think of that.
Ultimate, like right, like when that's ultimately what I think about when you talk about MK Ultra. But
Okay.
I also think about things like mind control too, where you're brainwashing people into doing things that you want them to do to try to control a narrative. Like with the things that I've looked into, like take like because this would fall into the same time period. Take like the things that Charles Manson did. I
Okay.
firmly, I through the things that I read, I believe that he's CIA.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good possibility of that.
Because the thing is, for him to be CIA is that he did what he did with the end goal of disrupting the hippie movement. Because right after he got tried and went to prison, he the hippie movement was essentially
It was
over.
dead. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole peace and love thing kind of went out the window because everyone was seeing these gruesome crimes on TV.
Yeah. So Do you think that there's like a I feel like the media occasionally tries out like, oh, do we need to cast like the doomsday feelings for these people? Like how they're saying how you have to feel a certain way to ensure a certain outcome, right? Like how Bill Wood was talking about that, like how you have to feel like everything's going to be okay for everything to be okay.
Yeah, see,
So let's say that you can actually change the outcome of those situations back and forth just from like convincing enough people that the world's going to end.
so before we go that broad,
Okay.
do you believe in like projecting into the universe?
Astral projection?
Like you know what I mean? Like if you put good vibes into the universe, like speaking
Oh,
things
like
into
karma and shit?
existence.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you believe in like speaking things into existence, or you put positive energy attracts positive energy?
So, I feel like there are too many variables for me to really like say yes or no to that. I would say in some instances I've been persuaded that that is the case. Yes.
So
I would
now
say
I
occasionally that's a real thing.
yeah, so on a small so like on a smaller scale of what you were talking about, I think that people can speak things into existence on a reasonable scale.
Okay.
And then but I also believe in the law of attraction. So I believe positive energy attracts positive energy. If you put nothing but negative energy into the world, you're going to get nothing but negative energy. You get what you surround yourself with.
Okay.
That would be kind of for me. That would be a smaller scale of what you were talking about.
I can see it. I think that that's a good way to interpret that. Like so yeah, that's a good way to break it down to like the short and narrow. I like that. With with that being the case, like I can see where you're coming from. With that being the case though, would you say that the media can manipulate this outcome? Like I mean, you're talking about persuading and influencing
I
a
think.
substantial amount of people on scale. Does it scale up to that broad of a spectrum is what I'm saying. Like in these
See,
small cases?
I think for the masses, what the media does, I think the media has full control over the mass, like over the mass emotion.
Okay.
I think they control the narrative for the most part on what happens within the world and how people should feel or not. All TV is manufacturing what they want you to feel.
Oh yeah. I mean without a doubt.
It,
Like that's the
it
whole point of film.
it's everything you do. Like take like these mindless like so I'm not a big fan of like reality TV. Like I hate
Okay, I
reality
hate
TV.
reality TV. I think reality TV is stupid as fuck. Like,
Yeah, it's garbage.
yeah.
But I think once in a while it's good for the human to digest a little bit of mindless entertainment.
I
You know what
get
I
you.
mean?
Yeah.
Just to keep your nothing that's really like you have to think about. It's just there. There's not a
Okay.
storyline to. There's not like a real storyline to it. Like like where most TV shows now have, you have to watch it from beginning to end. You can't just tap into
I
it.
know what you mean. Yeah.
So I think it's good for every once in a while for a human to digest that kind of mindless entertainment.
For me,
But
that's South Park for sure.
all it is design. Like take like American Idol or something like that, like
Oh
one of
yeah.
those competition shows. And before a
Uh.
singer goes up, they give you this sappy story before the person starts singing.
Oh yeah. To change how you
They're
feel about it.
manufacturing your emotions
Yeah,
to
it's
feel
stupid.
a certain way about this person before you even know before you even hear them.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just turning this. Goddamn candy. Turn this light off.
I think the news does the same thing on a larger scale.
Yeah. Oh,
So
totally
I
agree.
think, and it's really the reason why I refuse to watch the news, because because there's never they'll throw 100 negative, they'll throw a coverage of 100 negative things, and then give you
Yeah.
one dog story.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, they try to balance it out at least a little bit, but there's definitely times like now to where the media is throwing out like these 9/11 concepts. You know what I mean? Like to where the media is solely focused on one topic for extended periods of time, like right now
Which,
with COVID.
yeah, and given the fact that all major media is controlled within six corporations,
Yeah, it's a problem.
it's a problem.
That's why I think YouTube and like these online platforms are so important, man.
It is, but it is, but the people have to understand how much. So YouTube's owned by Google.
Yeah, exactly.
Google influence has so they
They
influence
manipulate
they
searches.
manipulate so much.
They manipulate a
They
lot,
shadow ban videos all the time.
for sure.
Or
They shadow
or
it,
they'll
like,
try to find a bullshit reason to take your video down.
yeah. Well, I mean, until recently, like they would completely block certain search results.
Exactly. They
Yeah.
even on their search engine, they control what you see.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Definitely don't trust your media sources. I just mean like sometimes you're able to see like sources like JRE to where he brings in
Yeah.
uh, a a professional for an hour to talk about COVID rather
I
than the fear mongering.
yeah, so as big of a fan as I am of JRE, I've started to get kind of an issue with him because you know how he built like he started that platform. Well, he didn't start the platform, but he elevated it.
What, podcasting in general?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
So he didn't start it, but he elevated it
Yeah, he
basically
changed the
almost.
game, I would say.
So, but like he started it with just drinking, smoking weed, talking shit with his friends.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
he
wouldn't
would
anyone
dive
want to?
deep. He would just talk shit, dive deep into conspiracy theories,
You mean
things that
now to
he's
where he's,
interested in,
yeah,
things he does now. Like I'm a fan of what he
a lot
does,
less
but
controversial most of the
he
time.
tiptoes around it.
Yeah, exactly.
He
Like,
doesn't
he cuts Eddie Bravo off almost every time.
because he doesn't want to go down those rabbit holes because I kind of think he because as much as he says that he does what he wants
Yeah.
and nobody controls him,
He's probably been
I
talked
think
to.
I think he's purposely self-controlling himself for something. Like I think he's trying to appeal to the masses without really upsetting people.
Yeah, no, I
I
think
don't
so.
like that.
Yeah, he's not as edgy as he used to be, for sure. He's definitely a lot
And
more passive.
I feel the same thing about Vice too. When you sent me that article earlier, I've
Yeah.
I've started to hate Vice way more than I used to.
I
There
usually
was
don't consume Vice at all. That was the first time I've consumed a Vice article in a very long
I
time.
used to really like Vice because they started out as an alternative media that actually covered real shit.
Yeah,
But now they
tabloidy.
with popularity and
Yeah,
whoever's funding them at this point, they've taken extreme biases over things,
for sure. They've definitely
which I
lost a
guess is
quality.
given in any successful business, but I'm just not a fan of it.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it either. I mean, do you think that that's like this censorship? Do you find that to be in like in good intentions, or do you think it's malicious?
Depends. It depends. So if you
Okay.
take like Joe Rogan for instance, I think it's within good intention.
Okay.
I just I think he does it for his viewers' sake to keep the attention on what he wants to keep the attention on.
Yeah,
Like,
specific subjects.
yeah. But when you take things like Google that manipulates search results, I think it's malicious.
Okay,
And I think that was
we're in
proven
agreement.
so within. I think that was proven so in the last election, and even during this election.
Yeah, yeah, it's still happening. Oh, I had to throw away those donuts.
I mean, doesn't
Sorry.
doesn't Tulsi Gabbard have a lawsuit against Google right now?
Well, yeah, she's had it. I didn't really look into it. I haven't followed up through it. I remember when she first initiated that lawsuit. She's, as far as I'm aware, still pursuing that. And then she also went to like sue Hillary Clinton. I'm pretty sure for defamation.
Yeah. My thing with Google is like they have to be costing themselves like millions of dollars doing this.
Yeah, that dude.
If you care, like a business like that usually only cares about money. Why are they sacrificing so much money to do this? I mean, they're still
Exactly.
making millions of dollars, but
Yeah, dude, it's strange. I think that they definitely have uh some sort of hand in the cookie jar, so to speak, how they're involved and implicit in whatever the overall idea is that's being ran down our throats every day, right? Like this, it's like, hey, we need people to have a limited access to this kind of information, so let's make uh, the main sources of media that they consume a complete shit show, and then, hey, Google, we need you to make sure that people can't find these uh, alternative views anywhere.
yeah.
Like like
See,
Google, I highly doubt that Google would be doing that independently. You know, like I feel like they would definitely be told to do that.
yeah, so they have to have a deal somewhere where it's coming from an outside source for why they're doing it.
Yeah,
Or whoever's running Google is involved with outside things that influence their business.
yeah, those
It's
government regulations that ultimately oversee everything you do.
yeah, and
I'm
and
right there with you,
and for them to affect YouTube like that too, where they're controlling. Basically, they only want you to see their sponsored content
for sure.
at this point. They
The
don't
stuff
want
that's
you to
paid
see
to
anything
promote,
else.
yeah. What's on the trending page, what people are spending the most dollar to get going.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
there's a lot of things you will never see on the trending page unless you've
they're
designed your
huge.
YouTube for it to pop up.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah,
I have my actual account on YouTube designed to show me what I want it to see.
same.
Now, if I dive deep into like random like conspiracy theories, I do that on my laptop or computer where it's not logged into an account.
Yeah?
'Cause I
Dude,
don't
I
want
do it
that.
on
I
my
don't want
account.
that fucking with my system.
I do it on my account. I don't care.
I don't like it.
I'm as chaotic as possible when it comes to that. I definitely have some very interesting things on my YouTube homepage, such as like Joe Scott. Are you familiar with this guy?
No.
Dude, some of his stuff is fucking interesting as hell. He today did four mysterious deaths and disappearances. I haven't watched it. Probably gonna watch it in the shower. I know that sounds weird.
I do the same shit.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so uh, with
I wanted to bring.
censorship. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say this falls into censorship, kind
Okay.
of basically. It's on the same storyline. It's something I wanted to bring up. Is that what? So like things like CNN, MSNBC,
Okay.
ABC, all that stuff,
Sure.
Fox, all those news outlets are still considered mainstream, but not really.
Yeah, I mean, more people are online than watching cable TV.
Yeah, if anything, what you see on basically podcast is the new mainstream as
For
far as
information, yeah, I agree.
that goes. But if you want direct information where you're gonna get it without having to look for it, then you got Facebook and Twitter and
Yeah,
Instagram.
those. Yeah, I can agree.
But that's what I'm saying. Like TV, ultimately, cable is dead. And I don't really. I mean, I'm sure some people get onto those like Fox News website or MSNBC website, but
Yeah,
I don't really know anybody that actually gets on those.
it's old
I say
people,
most
man.
people that
It's
use those
old
kind of
people.
do what?
It's old people.
Yeah, that's all it is old people, and those are the same ones. If they get their news from anything, they get it off of the Yahoo like front page.
Exactly. I get my news from Twitter. I follow every news company that I'm interested in, like everything from. I even follow Fox News. I'll follow CNN. I
I
follow The
mean,
Hill. I think.
I know we've said it before, but it's good to get a variety of things coming in.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But I mean, I think Twitter for like that quick pace information to where like you can get an article, you can get the news right there right away. Like Twitter is the best app in my opinion for getting news.
Yeah,
It's also entertaining as
it's
hell.
yeah. I also think they don't try to censor what comes through their news thing. I think
Yeah,
if it's actually trending, it's actually trending.
it's yeah. Dude, they manipulate trends.
They do,
They for
but
sure
I don't
manipulate a
think
lot
it's
of
as I
trends.
don't think I mean everyone manipulates their system, their program,
Yeah,
but I don't think Twitter does it. I don't think they do it as much.
you'd be very surprised as to what they hide.
I know they tend to lean left with a lot of news
Yeah.
or with and even with their policies,
Okay. Well,
but
so Twitter has from time to time hidden news about like the Hong Kong protesters, for instance, how they didn't have certain tags for that trending, or like trying to think of another more recent. Hong Kong's the most recent thing I can think of, but like there'll be trends for like certain political candidates or certain certain projects or funds or like whatever people are trying to get out there that get hundreds of thousands of tweets that never trend because they don't want it to.
yeah, I see what you're saying. I
That's
think
fair.
for things like that though, that's coming out of China. I mean, China's already heavy regulated into what's exposed anyway,
Yeah,
so for Twitter to expose what's going on in China would be harder for them to do it, but if they were deliberately just not showing it like that, then
yeah. No,
maybe
no.
I
What I'm
don't know. It's
like, it was American news stations that were reporting on it, like
yeah,
the Times, a variety of uh, American entities that are now like the Washington Post and the Times and stuff. They're no longer allowed to do like journalism in China at all. So they just kicked them out. But like the reports that they had at one point or another regarding Hong Kong, the the results for I forget what it was. I think it was just hashtag Hong Kong protesters were mostly preferring people like uh, independent accounts, like people that were just talking about it. They were promoting that above certain news, like to keep the news out, but to keep like what people were saying involved.
yeah. I just,
It
I just
happens.
think
It
I think
definitely happens.
I just at the end of the day, for people to find real news, they need to find the reliable alternative
Yeah,
news. Find actual journalists that post reliable that stories that have been proven to be reliable,
For sure.
people that aren't, compromised by typically just aren't compromised by money. Just want all they want is the truth out there.
Yeah, and that's rare
It's I
nowadays.
mean everyone's money motivated at the end of the day because you have to make a living, but
For sure.
usually your low usually your journalists that are on the lower end of the pay scale aren't putting out a lot of bullshit.
Yeah. No, I can agree with that. They're trying to at least stick to their guns and get the information out as they have it.
Yeah.
Like they might not.
They're either there because they care more about the truth than they do money,
Yeah,
or they're just shitty journalists. So you just gotta you
that's
gotta be
fair.
able to figure out which one they are.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Um, I don't. I got nothing.
Did you do you how familiar were this kind of just keeps falling into that subject a little bit. How familiar are you with Steven Crowder?
Steven Crowder. I feel like I've heard this name.
He's the guy that dude, he's like the biggest meme person in the world. He's the one with the change my mind table. He has a his podcast is louder with
Change
Crowder.
my mind. I don't think I'm familiar.
But you know who I'm talking about there, right?
The political commentator, conservative political commentator and comedian YouTuber. I did not know who this person was before you just mentioned him.
But you are aware of the meme though. So I mean everyone.
Oh, the change my mind meme. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. Okay, my bad.
That's
That
his
took me a second.
thing. That's his whole thing.
That's it. Okay.
He picks a controversial topic and tells and open armed welcomes people to debate with him over this topic.
Okay.
And one of the videos I watched recently was his topic was Trump is not a racist. Change my mind.
Okay.
And I don't know how many people he talked to that day, but through the video he pretty much only talked to this. She was German,
Okay.
so she wasn't from America. She was German, and I think she was living in Poland, but she was with her friend visiting here. I don't know.
Interesting.
She was through the accent you could tell she was foreign.
Something. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, she was very, you know. But anyways, so he just started it off with what was the outside view of like Trump,
Okay.
and she just kept throwing all these like usually tells them,
Okay.
and he was just disproving it one by one and like giving her actual quotes on it and basically ends the argument with her over the fact because she becomes irate at this point in this argument when he tells her that Germans don't have freedom of speech.
Oh, ho, ho, ho. That's tasty.
That most countries don't have freedom of speech.
Yeah, I mean, do we really here in the States?
Yes,
You think so?
we don't get jailed for hate speech.
I mean, that hate speech isn't freedom of speech, though. I don't think hate speech is necessarily protected
You
by
still don't
freedom of
get
speech
jailed
anyway.
for it. You can question
Sure.
the government and you can say whatever hateful thing you want. You don't get jailed for it. That's freedom of speech. Whether you like it or not, it's freedom of speech.
Okay. So,
But if you go to
all right,
Canada and you
we're not
question
gonna
the
get into this.
government or have hate speech, you're going to get jailed. If you go to Germany, same thing.
Okay.
You can't question you can't if you have anything that questions the government in these other countries, they have like almost freedom of speech. You question the government, you can get fined for it. Or for whatever reason, I guess depending on what it is you're saying, you can go to jail for it too. Here our country is built on the fact of questioning the government. Ultimately, we're supposed to have the control. I mean,
I mean, that's
I don't think
true,
we have
yes.
as much control as we should, but
Yeah, I don't think we have any real control.
Not
at all.
anymore.
No, we haven't for a long time.
Yeah, I
I'd say we gave up that control probably mid to late 1800s.
yeah, it was pretty much shortly after, pretty much when the military became stronger than the people is when we pretty much lost that control.
Yeah, and then the government was just
It was
able to do
easier
what it
for us
wants.
to have the it was easier for us to overthrow a government when everyone was fighting on the same playing field.
Yeah, exactly. Nowadays, like, I mean, through insurgent style tactics, like you could definitely compete with the military. We've seen it in the Middle East, but
Yeah.
that like armed conflict with the United States is not the solution very clearly. Like we would need a ideological overthrowing at this point rather than a armed overthrow, you know.
Yeah.
Unless if the military just decided to be like, "Oh, hey, we're staging a coup. Sorry."
Yeah. But that's but with that one particular video, that was pretty much the whole argument. Because she became irate and started like yelling at him and cussing
That's not how you win a
immediately because
conversation.
she's like, "That's bullshit. I worked in German media. We could report whatever we wanted." And then he's like, "No, that's not true. You can go to jail for these things." She's like, "Yeah, hate speech." And then and then kind of like the crowd was kind of laughing at her about it, which didn't make her any happier. But then he explained to her pretty much what I was explaining to you,
Okay.
that whether you like it or not, we can say pretty much whatever we want here and not get fined or go to jail for it. And I don't and now there's a lot of yeah, I don't agree with hate speech or, false propaganda, and
Yeah, yeah.
but I think that we should never actually give up our First Amendment rights.
Oh no, yeah, we should definitely never do that. I mean, that's like
And I think and before COVID, with the whole like I don't know which particular movement it is. Where was I seen something in like maybe Virginia or something, was they were voting or something to make I think it was basically to make hate speech like some kind of like I think I want to say maybe in like I don't remember which state it was. It was an East Coast state where
okay.
you could get in trouble. I think for like maybe using dead names or something.
All dead naming someone?
I think like I think they were trying to like put that into an actual law.
So
I don't know if that was that specifically, but it might have been along those lines.
dead naming is in like if someone changes their identity and you refer to them like so for Caitlyn Jenner, if you were to refer to her as Bruce Jenner, that's dead naming, right?
Yes.
That's what you're referring to.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to specify. So I don't I
I
don't think
really
that you
I
can
feel pretty
logically.
confident that whatever it was, it had to deal with the trans community.
Yeah, no, I mean yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Um, I think it's really difficult to incriminate dead naming. Uh, one, just general mistake. Like, even if you're on the record and you're having a conversation, someone that had known Caitlyn Jenner for their entire lifetime would likely call her Bruce. Like, I mean, just out a
Yeah.
slip of the tongue, you know? Like, so outlawing dead naming is one. I mean, y you can only
No, I
expect
know.
so much
I'm
of
not
people.
really. I'm not trying to dive into this topic.
No, why not? We got nothing to
no,
lose.
no. I'm not trying to dive into the topic.
Of trans rights? Is that the
Not
topic?
necessarily
Or
trans
dead
rights,
naming?
but do what?
Or just dead naming?
No, I think dead naming's wrong, but
Yeah, I think it's wrong, but you can't incriminate it.
like you said, it can become unintentional.
Yeah.
But even if some
There are a variety of situations.
I think it's fucked up. But if someone's doing, even if someone's doing it intentionally,
If you're doing it to be a dick, just stop being a dick. Like
yeah,
that's the
pretty
thing.
much. But
You shouldn't go to jail. You
I
could
don't
probably do
think,
harassment if it goes far enough. Like I mean, do that.
yeah, it
Don't
can
make
be
dead
kind of
naming illegal.
harassment,
Yeah.
and that's pretty much how Twitter views it. Twitter will
Yeah.
ban you basically immediately if they feel that you've done that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that people, yeah,
But
people are sensitive to certain things, like that could trigger a pretty dramatic event for someone who might have PTSD or who has experienced things uh, going through those processes that were traumatic to them. Like dead naming someone really could be traumatizing for people. I get that, but
no,
like it can
yeah, I
be
understand that too.
unintentional.
I just think that my my overall main point is that when you start making things for us to say illegal, you're starting to walk a very fine line
Yeah, like
because there's always the people that want to start pushing that line.
oh yeah, for sure. I'm one of those people occasionally. Like there are certain things that I think are like just don't say it. This is ridiculous. Like
Yeah, but that's my overall point.
yeah,
I'm not condoning the whole act of like den naming. I'm just saying that like if the instance that I was trying to recall as far as going into laws,
yeah,
I think that when you start giving up your just any with any rights, not even just your First Amendment rights, when you start giving up your rights for things, it's you're walking a line that you don't want to see the end game to.
for sure. I'm right there with you.
Because the government sees an inch and they will take a mile.
Oh, they always do. Like they're very good at taking as much away as they can. So I don't know. Freedom of speech is an interesting conversation always,
Yeah,
and like assuming that people have inalienable rights, always an interesting conversation.
I pretty when it comes to things like that, I stand on the side of whether I just step back from it. You can say whatever you want. It's not gonna bother. I mean, it probably might bother me, but if you're saying things that I don't like, I'm just gonna avoid you.
Yeah,
But
like
I'm not
I
gonna
just
tell you.
won't
But I'm not gonna
associate with
tell you.
someone
But
that's
I'm not gonna
closed-minded.
tell you you can't say something.
Yeah, okay, I'm there with you. Like I'm not gonna associate with someone that's as closed-minded and naive as that, but
Yeah,
like
I mean,
it
if you
doesn't.
don't like the way someone thinks, then just don't associate with that
Yeah,
person.
exactly.
Pretty
That's
much
easy.
like,
Now, if that person is once again being aggressive about it and like harassing you,
oh, if it turns like aggressive or like target harassment or
yeah,
violent or anything, yeah, then that's a different story.
feel free to pursue that however you need to, you know. But like, mm, someone says something that I dislike, I just I get through it the first time, and I just take note of like the quality of person that they are. It's the easiest way for me to go about it. If they're low quality people, probably don't want to associate with them anyway.
Yeah, I pretty much I take the hands off approach with a lot of things. Like if it doesn't direct me, it doesn't affect me directly, then
Yeah,
I usually just don't take too much up with it.
same. I
It has to be something really like out there
yeah,
for it to be like
and for it
it
not
has
to
to
be
be something
personally
really
related to
bad
me.
for me to like take side with it.
Yeah, I yeah I can't think of any real extremes. Um, there are definitely certain things that you shouldn't say. That's about it. But like,
Yeah,
it shouldn't be illegal necessarily to say it. I don't think that law
no,
really has the.
and that's what I just
This is a philosophical problem, not a legal problem. You
I
know what I
look
mean?
because I look at the way I look at everything is with I look at it with I try to look at everything with logic and rational thinking. I don't try to take a bias on anything.
No,
And
that's
when it
that's a good
comes when
approach.
it comes to when it comes to our amendments, they're there for a reason. I don't think we should. As soon as we start giving up things, is when we lose all control. We're no longer. We ultimately will. We
I would
won't be a democracy anymore.
I would argue that we've already given up so much that we are no longer a democracy and that we no longer really have anything.
I agree with you and I agree with you for the most part on that, but I don't fully agree with that. I
It,
still feel like we still have control over some things.
like what?
Uh,
I
I
mean,
mean,
other than your personal way of life every day. Like,
yeah, nothing. So far, nothing. No laws that's been made within. I don't know. At least the last within. No laws that I can think of within my lifetime that's been made that's directed me
directly
affected me
impacted your life.
directly.
No, that's fair. I mean, but how much influence do you say you have over the decision making of like whether or not that
Yeah,
could
see
change?
that's the part I agree with you on
Yeah.
is
Okay,
that
that's what I was getting
I
at.
don't think what we have we don't have as much control as that we're told we have.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. Common ground, people. That's how you got to find it. And we've resumed. All right. So have you actually read any of this Montauk stuff?
Any of the what?
Like there's the Montauk Project Experiments in Time by Preston B. Nichols with Peter Moon from 1992.
No, I haven't read any of those.
So I found this on a quick search a little bit earlier when we were first talking about it.
Yeah.
So apparently it was like this copy that I have said should only be read uh, if the updated original cannot be found on the original author's site. The original author's site does not work, which is interesting. So they backed it up. Um, and just scrolling through it real quick, a few of the subjects that they touch into include missions to Mars in the 80s, which is interesting. I haven't read all of this. I literally just found this, so I'm gonna have to look back into it. But it seems quite interesting. I will I'll definitely have this to talk about the next time we uh we get together, and I'll send you the link to this so we can both. I mean, the thing looks like it's 84 pages long, so I mean it's not small.
Yeah.
It's not a big read, but it's not a small PDF by any means. I sent you that on Twitter, so we can look into that
Yeah,
later.
the Montauk project alone is something you can really dive deep into.
Yeah, this was it looks pretty interesting. Um, I'm not I'm not super familiar with the Montauk project. I know like is this how closely related to this is the Looking Glass project, Project Looking Glass? Would you say, in your impression, this is one of the same, or are these like collateral operations, like similar but probably happen around the same time?
I would call it like maybe a Project Looking Glass adjacent. Uh,
Okay,
it's like
so a
I
similar
don't think
project.
they're exactly the same thing, but they're pretty close.
Okay, yeah, not familiar with the Montauk Point or project, so I'll have to definitely have to look into this one. It looks
I think
interesting
with
as
the
fuck
Montauk
though.
I think with the Montauk project, I think they're achieve a lot more things in like the with like human capabilities than just
Okay.
seeing with time travel,
Okay. Gotcha.
you know.
So
So
you before we went on break, you wanted to get into particularly like the controlling of the media or whatever, like mass feelings. Is that what you said?
yeah, so like I know we've discussed this a couple times, and I keep coming up with more and more after every time we had this conversation, I come up with another example.
Okay.
But I think government agencies have an influence on what movies and television gets made.
Okay. I mean the
Sometimes I
FCC
think
definitely
these
does.
things are truly just inspired by real events.
Okay.
But in certain cases where I'd say like I'd say like the best example of something getting made to like so it gets easily dismissed because it was in a movie.
Yeah. Like, dude, you're talking about the
I think that
Matrix.
I was gonna say I think the Matrix is like the ultimate example.
Yeah. It definitely would be, I think.
And
Please
then
continue.
in something that kind of goes hand in hand with that, I think Marvel's use of the multiverse kind of goes with that too. Like
Yeah.
I think Marvel's use of the multiverse is something else that they like. It can be used as a way to be dismissed that is a multiverse just because they use a movie with superheroes in it.
Well, yeah, I mean I get that. I think that like what really set that in motion was like in the comic book days of Marvel. Not necessarily the movie days. I would say the comic books really touched on the multiverse more heavily than the movies ever have. But this
Yeah,
concept was old, right? Like when did the you're talking the Marvel comics have been around since the 30s.
yeah. No, they've been around for a long time.
Yeah. So they've been around a very long time and like they really went through that first phase of okay, this is hugely popular back in the 40s.
Yeah,
Like and they started talking about really extravagant shit that would otherwise just be impossible.
but I don't think they introduced the multiverse till way later in the comic book series.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean
think
it
it was something. I don't think it was something they started out with.
no, I don't think that that was an initial
I
thing.
think it was their way of. I think because with comic books hit a time period where they kind of died a little bit,
Yeah.
and for them to I think for them to be able to revamp it with new stories and stuff, I think that's where the multiverse came into play. Is in that time period.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know specific date as to when they would have first introduced the multiverse.
Um. Well,
I'm not super, yeah.
we can move on from that for a second.
But I mean, that's an interesting concept that you're playing with. Like, we know now, well, like we don't know, but it's theorized now through Sean Carroll that the multiverse is real. Like his book. Let me go to my Audible. So he talked about the multiverse in his book Something Deeply Hidden: Quantum Worlds and the Emergence of Space-Time. Uh, I've listened to it about 6 times, and every time it just is a complete mind fuck. And that's the best way I can describe this. Like he describes it really well in layman's terms, trying to make make the ideas of quantum physics sort of accessible for everyone. But dude, like this shit is balls deep. Like even at the
Yeah,
most basic levels, it's a lot for an average person to think about. Very good book though. I wish I could gift. I wish I could gift like audio audibles, like to let you listen to it, because you'd probably fucking love this book. But eh, it's totally possible that the media would introduce something like this to discredit certain claims uh, by releasing a movie before someone could make the claim. Like,
yeah,
you know,
and, and you take like the Matrix. I mean, there. I mean, there's a lot of people that watch the Matrix like it's a documentary.
yeah. Oh, dude, there are people that take it a little too seriously.
Yeah, you can. Sometimes you gotta take just a little. You gotta give a little bit of room. You gotta step back from some things, like, but the underlying point of the movie is that I mean, it's very possible that we're living in a simulation.
Yeah, it's very
And they
possible.
and
It's,
one of the and then one of like the small components in that movie is that like things like deja vu doesn't exist.
yeah. God, I hate that. Like, it fucks with
Yeah,
my head, bro. Um,
it really does.
so
But since it's
I like the idea that deja vu would be this phenomenon of, okay, so this timeline has had something similar happen, and I'm feeding into that right now. You know what I mean? Like maybe this interaction happened before on a different timeline, and we've crossed paths a couple times, so like,
absolutely possible. It just might not have been me and you.
yeah, just a different version of us.
Yeah,
I fucking straight mind fuck right there. Like, wait, what? This is possible? I mean, with many worlds theory, it's kind of likely that this is the case for deja vu or like even the Mandela effect. You could say that the Mandela effect is a slight shift left or right into a different reality to where the Berenstain Bears are the Berenstein Bears. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like they're still here. People still remember them. It's just subtle details that have shifted back and forth.
yeah. Like I'm willing to acknowledge what the Mandela effect is,
And the idea
and
of it, yeah.
but but my explanation for why it even exists is from the crossing of timelines.
Okay, same. Okay. We're
That's my explanation for that. Like I just refuse to. I think that things get introduced into our world that, yeah, sometimes we forget. Yeah, like what you said earlier. Our memories aren't the best,
for sure. I'm right there with you on that.
but there's just some things that like they're too big just to be ignored.
Such
We
as
can we you don't forget major things like,
like 9/11.
yeah. So
Could you forget little details of the major thing though? Of course you could.
yeah,
So
and that's completely
so
possible.
what if it was like and they've clearly changed. This is bold. Very conspiratorial. I don't necessarily believe this, but let's say that 9/11, let's say that there it was actually a Tomahawk missile that hit the Twin Towers, or that hit the Pentagon. For sure, it hit the Pentagon. Um, that's the idea is that a
It would
Tomahawk
have
missile
also
hit the
had to
Pentagon.
have hit what was it, Tower 6 or
I think
7 or
the one that wasn't anywhere near
the
the world,
third tower.
the third one that just like free fell, even though it
Yeah,
wasn't directly hit. Yeah,
nothing got hit. It didn't
that
get
was
hit by
suspicious.
anything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like oh, just fire from the other one caused this one to. No, it looks like someone took that motherfucker out too. That's what happened.
yeah. Towers just don't fall.
Yeah. No, dude, 9/11 was for sure an inside job. I'm gonna say that on the record. I believe that's the case.
There's too many ththings that point to that it is. If there's anyone that still thinks that it was an actual terrorist attack, then well, I mean, okay, it's definitely a terrorist attack because you
Uh,
incited
yeah,
terror.
regardless of who the terrorist was, like
Yes,
people instantly want to think brown man with a turban on
yeah.
his head equals terrorist. This is
The
fucking
craziest thing
awful.
is that as soon as it happens, you're like, it was Bin Laden. Like, who's Bin Laden?
A construct.
Yeah,
How much you want to
exactly.
bet? Dude, Bin Laden was in the White House. He was literally in the White House. He was there during the
So
Clinton administration.
it's like
Tell
this
me this
just
guy's
happened,
not a
and
construct.
you immediately know who did it. Like,
Exactly. Like, oh, this is Osama bin Laden. He's claiming it. Look, he's telling us he's the bad guy. Let's go to war with this guy that we know, that we've known for years. It
I still can't get past the fact that it's like, how does this man keep making these great videos in a cave?
right. Propagandist, man. No, I don't think bin Laden was ever really well, so the
He
19
wasn't.
hijackers were all Saudi Arabian.
Yeah,
What the fuck
yeah,
does that have to do with anyone in Pakistan
yeah.
or in Afghanistan or Iraq? These were Saudi Arabian nationals that allegedly hijacked these.
Yeah. I,
So
Osama bin Laden was like an ex-military guy, right?
I believe he. I don't know much about his personal details. To be fair, I never really found him that interesting. To me, he was probably a militiaman at one point. Uh, he was more of a scholar. Um, and his dad was a Saudi millionaire. What are the odds?
Yeah.
Um,
I,
from Yemen.
I will say this that like so I was in the third grade when that happened. All
Yeah,
right. Now I remember pretty vividly the whole occurrence and the news coverage of all of it, but I 100% did not have any clue what the World Trade Center was at the time, or I didn't have
yeah,
a grasp on its relevancy, its
exactly. Same.
importance, or
We were
anything.
children. Yeah.
I
When
had never even heard of it before
yeah.
that happened.
Well, I mean, as kids, you wouldn't really understand the ramifications of such a thing anyway. But yeah, I'd never heard of the World Trade Center or World Trade Organization when I was a child. Like, that wasn't relevant to me.
Like other than like I mean coming after that, I mean yeah, like I later figured out that there was an attack on it, in like the 90s, but
Yeah. It, you, uh, yeah, the World Trade Center, the original bombing, I don't believe he was responsible for, though. I know he bombed a U.S. embassy, or well, was involved in the 1998 U.S. embassy bombings in Tanzania. So he was involved in that. He created Al Qaeda in 1988, was banished from Saudi Arabia in 1992. So it seems like Saudi Arabia sold him out, but he still had quite a bit of influence there. He moved to Sudan. So I mean, this was a guy that was really trying to coordinate things, but at what level can this guy really get people into the United States, get them uh, passported, get them capable of like barely flying Cessnas and then somehow hijacking 747s? Like, dude, barely flying a small. I've ridden in Cessnas. They're very small. They are not the craziest things to pilot, but I mean, they're certainly a lot easier to pilot than a fucking 747. And these guys could apparently barely pilot that shit and then somehow manage to get on a 747 and fly it in the fucking World Trade Center. Se-
Yeah, with
Seems
pretty good accuracy.
pretty great accuracy. I mean,
Now
that's
they missed with the plane. They didn't make it to the Pentagon, but
no, it was allegedly a plane that hit the Pentagon.
yeah, exactly. But there was never like plane remains in the Pentagon. Or no, hold on.
Well,
Well,
no,
there was a no.
there was
There was
another
a.
one that fell in like PA somewhere. I
That's
think
what
that
it was.
that
It
was
was
yeah, that's
yeah.
what you got the two
There was the
confused.
plane that was going somewhere else, and it never even made it there.
Yeah, yeah. So that one went down because the people that were so I mean that one sensibly is a hijacking scenario. There are recordings on that one. Um, and it makes me wonder. So if it wasn't, I mean clearly somehow the the people on the flights are gone. Like they're gone. They're dead. Like so that discredits the possibility of it being a Tomahawk missile or something.
Yeah.
But like so I don't necessarily know if I believe it was some sort of missile, even though a missile like that would be much more easily flown into. I mean, it'd be much more easily flown into the building. But the building itself was rated to withstand impacts from.
Yeah, it was designed specifically for that.
It was
To
designed so that
prevent
way it was
that.
structurally sound enough to withstand a significant impact, like from a like an airplane.
Yeah.
In case of accident, it so they say. But dude, like I would say there's just so much going on with the whole Bin Laden thing. It's it's weird to imagine that he was not some sort of construct for another higher entity. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I don't think he was really a mastermind enough to where he could orchestrate all of this shit. Like he just does not seem to have that stature. But I don't know how convincing this guy could be either. Like
Yeah. Then like right after him, it's like, well, Saddam Hussein's a bad man too, and we're gonna take him out as well.
yeah, I just think that like I think of the Epstein thing and how this guy seems to be a construct for some intelligence organization. I think Bin
Yeah.
Laden was as well.
I mean, these terrorist organizations are very real,
Oh
but
yeah, I
they're only
completely agree
real
with that.
because we made them real.
True, we've definitely created their legitimacy in giving them legitimacy, you know.
I mean,
No, I mean like I
we,
definitely know that we've been fighting Al Qaeda for years. I just mean that like
yeah. No, no,
or
no, no, no. I get what you're saying, but I mean, we ultimately created these terrorist organizations. I mean, we created
yeah,
ISIS.
yeah. Nah, I mean
It's
can't really argue with that, yeah. We're
like,
responsible for the rebel forces that ended up deciding to radicalize and make a
yeah,
caliphate. Like,
you can't go into these countries completely tear down their government and then bail out and be like, well, figure it out for yourselves. Like
you're
you just destroyed their whole country, like,
exactly like
and then you don't expect repercussions from this.
yeah, you can't expect to establish a what your idea is of a modern civilization in a place that has for centuries lived in sort of these tribal constructs of religious minority and majority. You know what I mean? Like the Sunni Shia, like these tribal aspects of these people. It's in the root of their blood that you're basically taking someone out of the Stone Age and throwing them in a modern city. Of course they're
Yeah,
gonna freak the fuck out.
yeah, you can't change people that's been set in their ways through a dictatorship and then all of a sudden, like, well, here's democracy. You can
Yeah.
have this,
Like here's this thing that you don't really understand, but we're going to tell you how it works.
and we know you're not gonna succeed at it because we don't succeed at it.
If you've been in a situation where you're dealing with that for centuries, how are you going to assume that the person that's trying to do this isn't just as evil as the last person that was there? Like I wouldn't imagine that they've
Yeah,
got my best
it,
interests in mind.
with whenever you live in a society that's built on like a dictatorship,
Yeah,
you take out the head man, you get replaced. Another one takes its place.
for sure. I mean, Al Qaeda's still alive today. Osama bin Laden's allegedly not.
Yeah. So,
That was
we can.
2011. That was
What was
9 years
2000?
ago that he died. That SEAL team strike on Osama bin Laden was apparently 11 years, or was apparently 9 years ago. 2011. May 2nd, 2011.
When
It's
was
been that long
when
ago.
was Saddam Hussein?
Saddam Hussein was like '03.
Was he the first one?
Saddam Hussein was the president of Iraq. He had nothing to do with.
Yeah. No, no, no. I get that. Yeah.
Yeah,
For
April of
some reason, I
2003.
thought they were. For some reason, I thought they were killed in vice versa order.
No, no, Saddam Hussein died before. Because you remember we invaded Iraq for the weapons of mass destruction, which weren't real.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had no real
They never
legitimate reason
found.
to invade Iraq, and now Iraq is
Oh,
equally
we
fucked.
definitely had reason to invade Iraq. They had heroin and oil.
You right. Yeah, mostly the
We we
oil.
we kind of got off on a little bit of a tangent there,
There's
though.
nothing wrong
I mean,
with
I don't. I look. I'll talk 9/11 conspiracies all day.
that.
I'll talk any conspiracy all day. I mean, this just happens to be one I firmly believe in as actually like 100% truth.
Which one?
For the most part, I'll entertain any conspiracy,
Which
but
which conspiracy do you think is 100% true? I'm sorry. Just want.
9/11.
Oh, 9/11. Yeah, it's definitely a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Something else
That's
is
what I'm
going
saying.
on there.
Like I'll all day long I'll entertain the idea of a conspiracy. Just 9/11 is one I'll dive really deep into because I firmly believe it's true.
Yeah, I definitely think that there were some inside entities. I mean, there were just too many people who profited from this. You know what I mean? Like there are too many
Yeah.
individual hands that got what they wanted out of this.
Yeah, like the guy taking out the insurance policy right before
How convenient, bro. How convenient
and then how about the fact that, the
for some
towers were only
asbestos.
like a quarter full of people than what they usually are?
Yeah.
There was barely anybody even in those buildings compared to like a normal day.
No, for sure. Thankfully, that's the case, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, thankfully there
But it was,
wasn't like
yeah,
as many lives lost as
it was
there
like,
could have been.
yeah. But I mean, like, they were willing to let those go. They were
I,
willing to do it.
yeah.
It's madness. I definitely think that that whole thing was orchestrated from top to bottom to be able to get that to happen. I mean, like, so
Well,
apparently these aircraft impact impact the World Trade Centers, and then like what, a few blocks away they found the passports of the guy that flew the fucking aircraft into the thing. That's that's ridiculous. That's planted. That's fucking
yeah.
planted. That doesn't.
Then
That's
you
not
got a
how this
third tower
works.
that just free falls out of nowhere.
Yeah, man. Like that. Tower 7, like you said, just fell in of its own accord. Like nothing hit it.
Yeah.
They said debris,
Most people don't even know that there was a third tower that fell that day.
which upsets me.
Yeah,
But I mean, the media.
that is the third tower is not common knowledge.
Well, like we've said earlier, most people that like when they get freaked out about shit, when they don't like it, they refuse to look into it. They refuse to think about
That's
it.
true. I think in this case, people just didn't look into it because that was something that wasn't widely reported.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like nowadays it's been verified. Like everyone knows it happened. At
Because
least that pay attention.
something like that had been widely reported, everyone in like immediately been like, "Well, this definitely is bullshit."
Yeah. Oh, for sure, dude. Like, you know, you don't want CNN and Fox News and all these entities that are very, you know, back then they were definitely the head of everyone's information. Those two in the states anyway. It was really just those two that most people were watching. Like
Yeah,
you know, MSNBC, like CBS, all of those. But the ones that are controlled by the six companies we mentioned earlier. So
it's
you don't want people
and
to
then
know.
like so, and then uh, Donald Rumsfeld goes on
Oh, that
national
guy.
TV and says we have like trillions of dollars unaccounted for,
Yeah,
and then literally the 9/10/2001 goes on national TV and says we have trillions
trillions,
of dollars unaccounted for, and
trillions
then next day all the offices that contain all the documentation for that are blown up.
disappeared. Yeah.
So
What
then
are the
immediately the
odds?
investigation goes away.
Yeah, those in the Pentagon particularly. That part of the Pentagon is the one that got blown up by that airplane.
Well, a lot of the offices, because a lot of the World Trade Center was just, businesses that rented out offices, but a lot of them were CIA offices. It contained a lot of documents that needed to be that they wanted destroyed as well.
Yeah, I mean there are a variety of entities that work out of places like that. I mean, it wouldn't. I don't know that for certain, but it wouldn't surprise me if the CIA had some sort of presence in the World Trade Center.
Then
Go ahead.
I lost my train of thought there.
Well, so
Uh,
the uh
the
the money that disappeared with Donald Rumsfeld, the trillions of dollars that
yeah.
disappeared when the Pentagon got hit. It's funny that now the University of Michigan a couple years ago, I think it was like 2016, they ended up reporting. I forget if we mentioned this in the last podcast, but like $23 million have disappeared. 20 or
Oh
$23
yeah,
trillion. 23
yeah. We
trillion,
talked
not
about
million.
that.
Trillion with a
Yeah.
T. That is insane. Yeah, we did mention that. So
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
But but after that they immediately put, like we were saying, they immediately put a name to the a face to the event, which was Bin Laden.
Yeah,
Used that they immediately had the whole country support on invading the Middle East,
yeah,
which they probably wanted to do anyways.
for sure. Yeah, they definitely had full intent
It
prior
just
to
gave
then.
them motive. They gave them it's a false flag, the same as they used the Gulf of Tonkin to invade Vietnam. I mean, well, to join go to war with Vietnam. I wouldn't say.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. There are numerous examples like that. There was a false flag back in like the 40s, to where they had like a cruise liner that got sunk, and they claimed that it was German, but it wasn't. It wasn't actually Germany that sunk the fucking cruise ship. Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
Hang on.
Like it vaguely sounds familiar, but I really don't.
I'm pretty sure. My memory might be fucked up here. The Lusitania, maybe. Yeah, so it was a German U-boat sunk the RMS Lusitania off the southern Irish coast. 128 Americans died, apparently. But there are claims that this was a false flag. I don't know how substantiated those
So they
claims are.
used the American's death to do something. That sounds more familiar.
Yeah, yeah. So they were like
'Cause-
trying to get into war, and I think it was World War II, trying to get that to compel Americans into war. The Lusitania.
yeah,
I'm
that
yeah.
yeah. That sounds
I mean, it's not too far out there that we wouldn't do something like that. I mean, clearly we did it with the Gulf of Tonkin. We could have
yeah, and
easily
they
done it with the
admittedly
Lusitania.
didn't it, and they have admitted. So I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
to think that the government isn't willing to risk people's lives to
Do what it
an
wants.
ulterior motive is naive.
For sure. Yeah, it's funny how that works. All right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to cover, good sir?
Mm, no, we can end it on that.
Alrighty. We managed to get another 30 minutes there. That'll bring us to time. Sweet. I'm gonna stop the recording.